Thank you, Maggie, for that report. And the discussion does continue, doesn't it?
It does. You know, after the apology, there are so many other issues that come, you know, with the Aboriginal people and the relationship they have with Canada. And identity is the big issue, you know, when asking both gentlemen, explain what needs to be reconciled. We hear reconciliation, what needs to be reconciled? And it really came down to identity, having an identity within the church. And that was the topic. I mean, we could have gone further, but the relationship between the Aboriginal people and the church. And having an identity and being accepted within the church for that identity. You know, they alluded to the fact that many First Nation or Indigenous congregations have the challenge of trying to fit in with the European way of doing church, and not bringing in their own identity, their own culture into their spirituality. And so that's the challenge. How do we fit in? And this happens with many different cultures, not just the Indigenous people, but how do we fit into the church and be recognized and applauded for what we've done? And it goes back to treaty agreements. It's such a rich history that needs to be discussed. And this was kind of the first real discussion and kind of peeling away the layers and talking about reconciliation
and the church, the church, capital C,
yes.
The Church of God really does encompass all people,
yes.
all people groups, all histories, and it's all about just coming under the lordship of Jesus Christ yes. and expressing ourselves in our own individual ways.
And that's where the healing comes from. When we realize that we are all under Jesus Christ, that's where the healing will take place.
So what are some of the churches doing? I mean, there was some churches featured within the communities of First Nations people, but what are they doing to be open to say, we don't want you to conform to us, but to be yourselves there?
Well, Bishop Mark MacDonald goes around to different churches, and really the challenge is, as he said, just creating a challenge to the churches. I mean, embracing the different communities and embracing the different cultures that are in the different Aboriginal
and within
communities.
The services.
And within the services, that means having their language, their native tongue, you know, being directed throughout the service. So things like that. I mean, there's subtle changes that are happening, but it's still, I mean, this is really the first real discussion that they've really had. And I mean, Mark MacDonald, I mean, is such a great person, and Terry LeBlanc, and able to represent the community so well and being able to discuss the challenges that they have.
Well, I think it can't just end with our Prime Minister, you know, just doing the apology. Yes. I think it's going to take the government and churches and the community to then kind of move forward in making these kinds of changes. And I think with the mindset to say, be yourselves. You don't need to conform to us, which I thought that was really, I think was it Bishop Mark who said that, or Terry LeBlanc who just said, we need you to just not conform to us, but be yourself here, you know, and worship God and be in community.
And it's, you know, I keep using the word challenge because it is such a challenge. After years of, you know, being under residential schooling and all that and being told you have to be this way, you have to forget your language, you have to conform to this way. It's hard to tell these people to now be yourselves. Who are we, you know?
They've been conditioned
exactly
by us, and they've to a certain point have fit into the box that we've put them in,
and now we're saying
and stereotyped them.
Be yourselves.
And so it's going to be a huge transition.
Yes.
Are they open as a people, now that you've met with these two leaders at this conference, are the people accepting the forgiveness? How do they feel about what's taken place? What's the general feeling?
Well, I know that Cheryl Weber went up north, and she was able to really speak to some of the people up there. And, you know, it's mixed. Some people are still hurting, and some people are accepting and realizing that this was, you know, a mistake in our history. But I do want to say that our Prime Minister is trying to move forward, and yesterday he met with some of the Aboriginal leaders and has decided to present them with a stimulus package, an economic stimulus package that will go towards housing and education and water resources, which is desperately needed in the reserves. So we are pushing forward.
That's good to hear.
That's very good to hear. I think that'll help the apology really sink in to their hearts when they see that there's actually money put behind the words. Well, thank you, Maggie, for that report. Well, stay with us. We'll be right back with some final thoughts right after these messages.